So we're starting over here.
Okay.
So this is Pat, running for Senate with Rob.
From Gloucester with the J Weekly in San Francisco.
And we're ready to start interviewing. Go ahead.
Okay. In recent poll, you came in second to Senator Feinstein with 18%. Were you surprised at that kind of polling when basically your campaign is you doing as much as you can online?
Yes, I've done some stuff in real life though too. I mean, the online's just the most cost-effective method.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to tape also because I'm probably not going to be able to
remember all
type fast enough.
Yeah. And, trust me, it'll flow much better if we just do taping.
Okay, so 18%. You were surprised at your numbers?
I was, well, I was hoping for 30%. I'm not sure why it was only 18%, but I'll try and do better in the primary.
Okay. How have you gotten your message out? What are you using? Are you doing the traditional political marketing things, like putting up signs and stuff, or is everything online?
I don't have money for that. If people want to do that, they do that of their own volition on their own dime without letting me know. So we've had our first flyering campaign that I've heard about this week. I've had about the ones before that. But I got a message anonymously online that posters had gone up somewhere at a university in California, so I'll have to wait and see the news which university it was. But yeah, no, it's I did in real life events. The first 3 months of me running, it had just been me meeting with a few committee men on Republican executive committees in some different counties inland. That's why I polled so high there, I think. But I can't say that that my Anglo-Saxon sounding name hurt me. There could have been people that were low information that just saw Anglo-Saxon name. Traditionally, whites have been trusted with leadership.
So you think people might not know what you stand for and what your platform is, and they just saw a name. It's easy to remember Patrick Little, and they're up for that.
Well, I looked at it. With the independents, there's like 32 candidates, and so it can't be attributed to that alone because there are Anglo-Saxon sounding names on there too, so it couldn't be that alone. Me not communicating with most of my supporters and most of my supporters being anonymous, it's very hard to gauge how word is spreading. But when things are like Jewish power or taboo to speak about, these things spread behind closed doors.
Let me talk a little bit about labels. I saw on your website that you say you are not a white supremacist because you don't believe in being superior to anybody. But you're okay with white nationalists?
I'm okay with white nationalists. I'm okay with anyone that's pro-white so long as they're not out hurting other people. Now, I get labeled neo-Nazi and white supremacist and all that, but I mean, they called Trump the same thing during his campaign. At that point, it's 1930s Jewish newspaper propaganda against the Germans in the lead up to getting us into World War II. So it's quite strange having 80 or 90-year-old war propaganda thrown at you. I'm not a member of the German National Socialist Party.
So do you reject neo-Nazi then when people, and it's obviously a label that will be attached to you?
Yeah,
are you a neo-Nazi?
I don't identify as one. I mean, the only time I've seen neo-Nazis were on TV, Jewish portrayals of some caricature of a pro-white person. But I don't consider, I mean, I'm not one of those caricatures from the movies.
What about some of the neo-Nazis who marched in Charlottesville? They were neo-Nazis who are alive and thriving today. Do you consider yourself like-minded to them?
I understand where they're coming from. I don't think that's the best route forward. People don't respond well to that. If the Jews in their media and their movies try to meme you as a certain type of caricature, and then you take on that persona, that seems to be playing right into the hands of the people that are oppressing you.
What about anti-Semitic? Do you consider yourself anti-Semitic?
What is anti-Semitic?
Well, against the Semitic race, against Jews because they're Jews.
Well, Semites are more than just Jews. Semites include Arabs as well. You know that, right?
Right.
Now, but when you say Semitic or Semite, it's implied Jewish.
Okay, so are you a Jew?
For the most part, yeah.
What is it about Jews? And I've read, your website. I've read your writings and so on. But what is it? Is there anything specifically about Jews that makes you anti-Jew?
Yes, their group behavior. I've met good Jewish individuals. However, when you're dealing with a group that is actively flooding your country with the refugees, replacing you, trying to do everything they can to critique the societal structures and traditions that have kept your people together historically, how can you respond with anything else but animosity? I mean, if you punch me with a glove on, I'm still going to be angry as if you punch me without a glove. And when I say you, I'm implying of somebody.
I know this is your person. So basically, you anti-Semitic, you reject it because that's too wide-ranging in terms of, and also includes Arabs and people.
Well, I mean, but at the same time, when I also theoretically reject the term white because there are people from the northernmost isle of Japan that have white skin, but they're definitely not from Europe. And there are Europeans that are ethnically European that were in the Mediterranean area that are able to get olive skin. Like, I have 11% South European ancestry. I can get olive. I'm olive right now. If you look at the genetics and the degrees of separations between different groups, and you look at the haplogroups and the different degrees of variability between different groups of people, you can see that this term white is not a very accurate description of Europeans. There are also people from Asia that have white skin. The Eskimos, technically, or I'm sorry, the Inuit. I grew up in the 80s, so we said Eskimo back then. So I use language that's I mean, right now the operative language is out there. So I use the term white, even though I'm oftenly in an ideal world that wasn't full of Jewish memes, I would say ethnically European, but it's a little rough around the edges to most people. It sounds like you're trying to say something new and strange, and people don't like the unfamiliar.
As far as your platform, I did read it on your website. Do you want me to just use that rather than asking specific things about it all over again, or is there anything in your platform you'd like to add?
Yes, historically slavery has been Jewish. I think the centerpiece of my platform is fixing two birds with one stone. So one, the legacy of slavery, and two, aid to the terrorist state of Israel. So Israel's a terrorist state. It commits terrorist attacks against this country. We can go into depth on that if you like, repeatedly. And we fund them in this terrorism against us and other people that then antagonizes against us. Now, Jews and slavery. If you read back to Roman histories, Jews always followed the Roman armies looking to buy captives off the Roman soldiers at a discount. And then they have always been the middlemen and also the distributors of slaves. They controlled the logistical networks for slave transport and everything, going back to Roman times. The Greeks, the Romans, all talk about this plenty if you read up. Now, in North Africa and in Arabia, the African slave trade and the white slave trade of European girls from the coast of Ireland and such, those slave trades were all Jewish. In this country, the slave trade was also Jewish. The slave markets were closed on Shabbat, not on the Sabbath. They were closed on Saturday, not Sunday. The largest slave market in the world was Brazil, and there was a Jew by the name of Lopez that controlled that. The triangular trade, the slave aspect at the very least, was controlled by Jews as well. New Haven, Connecticut was the home base of the Jewish slavers in the New World. The Ottoman Empire, the Balkan slaves that were taken by the Ottomans, those were also Jewish slavers. Right now, if you look at where the human trafficking capital of the world is, can you guess what country it is?
What you said.
Israel. Do you know where the breaking houses where they gang rape the women until they submit to their new life as sexual slaves is? What specific city? It's in Tel Aviv. Now, they say that the Russian mafia does this, but the Russian mafia isn't Orthodox Christians, it's ethnic Jews. But in the movies, you see the Russian mafia, they always have the big Orthodox cross on their chest, right? Jewish control of the media. Always project what the Jews have done onto the whites. And when the whites are gone, if we're not able to liberate ourselves from Jewish supremacist rule over our countries, You guys are going to scapegoat the Asians next, I think. The next most successful group is Berkeley.
As far as, and I also read on your website your goals if you were elected to the Senate. Is there anything you want to highlight in terms of that? I'm going to quote from the website if it's okay, because
Yeah, vote as much as you like.
rather than ask you the same questions and going through the whole list. But is there anything you want to highlight as far as what your goals would be if you made it to the U.S. Senate?
Absolutely. Once reparations have been paid out from the Jewish community and the Jewish oligarchs to the African descended slaves in this country, at that point, the money that would be used to fund Israel would be what funded that for 10 years. And at that point, all aid to Israel is cut, and any politician that ever suggests anything that could even lead to aid to Israel will face a death penalty if convicted of proposing it. So the crime would be proposing it.
In the Congress or at any level?
Congress, State House, anything. This would be a federal law. And senators, congressmen, they would all face a death penalty. It would be considered tantamount to treason. This would all be handled through the House and Senate Joint Committee on Un-American Activity that I'd like to sit on. Now,
Is that still active?
I'm going to revive it. The only thing is, George Lincoln Rockwell, he knew aides to McCarthy, and McCarthy spoke exactly as I do behind closed doors, these aides said to him. He said the only mistake McCarthy ever made was not mentioning the fact that the people he was at war with weren't just communists, but Jews. 90-something% of the spies for the Soviet Union have been Jewish, ethnically. Now, Jews don't identify based on religion so much as they do based on blood. I've been to synagogue before, to shul, to learn Hebrew.
When was that?
When I was going to a Baptist church in the South, evangelical and Baptist, I was church shopping. But I said, wow, I've read this New Testament front to back. It's time to learn Hebrew and Greek, and there were no Greeks around, but there was a synagogue down there.
Where was it?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, I was very pro-Israeli. I was extremely pro-Israeli. You know why? I was virtue signaling. I was told by the virtue signaling. The television told me Israel was great. The conservative talking heads told me that Israel was great. The evangelical churches, ever since the Schofield Bible, are you familiar with this Bible? It's the Schofield Reference Bible. It was written by a paid agent of the Rothschilds and taught at all the evangelical seminary schools. It's the one where it said that, it's the one where they stopped attributing the death of Jesus to the Jews and more to the Romans. And also where they started saying that there are even evangelical churches now that say that Jews go to heaven even if they don't convert to Christianity. I mean, this is completely Zion-Baptist. So yeah, I had that kosher sandwich in between the faith-based community and the television news and radio news and all that. It was Hail Israel all around. And you know what? I wanted to be a good American. I went and joined the Marine Corps and fought some of Israel's proxy wars, or well, rather just one, Afghanistan.
Okay. But you joined the Marine Corps because of what you heard?
No, not exclusively, but I was also, for example, there was a Palestinian descended person in the Marine Corps, and they said they didn't think Israel had the right to exist, and that emotionally triggered me, and I started going off on them, and I didn't want to have anything to do with them. And if I only knew back then.
So he was a fellow Marine?
I don't remember whether it was a male or a female.
Okay, but a fellow Marine.
A fellow Marine, yes.
And of Palestinian descent.
Yes.
And was attacking Israel as being a judge, and you stood up for Israel at that point.
Yes, I used to be incredibly cucked for Israel.
Incredibly
Cucked. Cucked.
Oh, cut.
Do you know cuckoldry?
Okay, cocked. Okay, yes, I do.
Okay. So Americans that support Israel are cuckolds.
Okay. Never heard the term used in that way, in a political way. I thought it was more of a sexual way, but that's
Political cuckoldry.
Okay.
Here, let me see if I can order. When she comes around, yeah. So go ahead.
Okay. Basically, how do you? I mean, when you were in the Marine Corps, you were fighting for the U.S. U.S. allies include Israel.
Not in my book.
But at that time, well, the stated allies, at least politically, if you ask anybody at the Pentagon, they'll say Israel is now.
Yeah.
Did you feel that way at the time you were in the Marines?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, I was like the most pro-Israeli Marine in the Corps, other than the Jews. Although Jews are underrepresented in military service, they're about 2% of the population, but less than half of 1% of active duty military members. I'm going to pause the video and
Okay,
order
that's
something.
fine. So, how do you reconcile the fact that as a former Marine,
Sorry, for here, right?
For here.
Okay.
as a former Marine, you're talking out against an American cause, but yet you're saying that the money that it has been sent to Israel should be given to Hezbollah, which is listed as a terrorist state or terrorist organization by the U.S.
Okay, well, freedom fighters, we were called terrorists by the British when we were rebelling against Mad King George. So if you look at what Hezbollah, who do the Christians of the Middle East, the religious minority there, that need protection of either a strong man or a strong constitutional republic, who are they supporting? They're all supporting Hezbollah. They're all supporting Assad because Israel has been funding ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and if you don't believe me, I can show you the speeches in Israeli parliament. Ani Navin Kasat speaks in Hebrew. Israel supports terrorist groups that commit genocide against ethnic and religious minorities in the Middle East. And so the Christians see the writing on the wall if these proxies for Israel take power, and so they're fighting. Hezbollah is full of Christians, you know that, right? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there are a lot of Christians in Hezbollah. You know why? Because they saw what happened to the to the Christians in the Middle East when they were taken over by the Israeli-backed terrorists. The girls were all taken into sex slavery, and the men were all killed. I don't know if you saw the roundup on the mountain where all the Syrian Christians were trapped on a mountain from one of the oldest Christian towns in the world.
That's in Iraq. You're talking about.
Yep. Well, right now, Hezbollah is full of Christians. You know why? Because Jews kill Christians. They do it a lot, historically, and I can go into the Jewish Holocaust of the Christians in Eastern Europe, 20 million of them in the 1920s and 30s. Thank you.
I'm not going to get back into refuting or discussing your arguments. They're your arguments, and I, try to faithfully, represent what you stand for. But the thing is there a disconnect when you're a former Marine, obviously a strong supporter of this country, and yet you're reaching out and saying you support one of this country's stated enemies in Hezbollah?
Well, here's the thing. The Jews did a terrorist attack against us in 1967, June, the USS Liberty. And don't say it was an accident because we have the radio intercepts. Anyhow, they jammed the communications on the ship and tried to sink it and blame it on Egypt in a false flag operation. Now, the Marine Corps is a department of the Navy, and when I found out about that, that really pissed me off. And you know what happened? That was in June. In October of that year, Lyndon Johnson signed into law a classified law that not everyone can see. It's now public knowledge, but in October, Israel was given then open access to all of our State Department and military intelligence. A country that had just attacked us in a false flag operation that was kept out of the media. One of the first responses from President Johnson, allegedly, is that ship needs to sink because all of his campaign finance people, all the people backing him that got him into the presidency were Jews. So, then I found out about the Levant affair, where Israeli citizens, Jewish Israeli citizens, pretending to be Egyptian Arabs, planted bombs in morale, wellness, and readiness facilities of United States bases in Egypt. And you know what happened when the military called back stateside and said, we've got Jews trying to kill U.S. citizens, and they're dressed up like Arabs? They said, oh, that's great. Turn them over to the Israeli embassy and don't talk to the news. All right, perfect. They hand them over to the Israeli embassy. Those terrorists are celebrated as heroes to this day in Israel because they were trying to draw the United States into a war against the neighbors of Israel. They wanted the Sinai at that point. They hadn't gained it yet. They wanted the Sinai through the Suez. And yeah, they were never punished. And so the Jews have controlled this country for a very long time. And so if I had let's say the United States is a person and I had a gun to that country's head, and I say, you're allies with me, aren't you? He's going to say, yeah, we're best buddies.
So you think it's false, the alliance?
We're an occupied government. This is a Zionist occupied government. We do whatever the hell Israel wants. They attack and kill our seamen. They try and blow up our families and the servicemen in Egypt. And I can go in another time to the details on 9/11. Israel's fingerprints are all over it. I mean, this isn't our ally. This is a hostage taker. We're a hostage country.
Getting back to Hezbollah for a second, Hezbollah was the organization that bombed the Marine barracks in Beirut, right?
I'm not too sure about that. I've seen some stuff showing that there might have been some Mossad agents involved. Now, here's the incredible thing about that is because Lebanon, the Israelis wanted the Americans out of there very badly because the U.S. troops were functioning as peacekeepers. When the U.S. left, Israel has been running roughshod repeatedly over the Lebanese, and Hezbollah was formed as a response. It's now they have community outreach. Hezbollah is loved by the Lebanese people. You know why? Because it keeps them free of the Jewish supremacists. It keeps the Christians from being killed off by the Jews, or well, the front organizations. Now, do you know who? There was a man by the last name Islam who was a convert to. He was a Jewish convert to Islam, and he's the one that started Al Qaeda and all this stuff. He was Bin Laden's protege. Bin Laden was his protege. So yeah,
Jewish convert to Islam. Okay.
Yeah. Or was it ISIS? I'll look it up. Do a request for information on that one. I can't remember off the top of my head. I've been studying Jews for like a year and a half straight, so I can't always remember all the details. Put in a note, say Pat says to get back to him on the name. I'll give you the exact name and when he converted.
So you say you were as pro-Israel as anybody in the Marines except for the Jews.
Well, I was probably more pro-Israeli than them.
Okay. When did the transition begin, and how was it? I know you said you read things on websites where there were other white guys talking about this stuff, and you read the Culture of Critique. Okay.
Well, and I said I'm going to read this book that you guys keep on talking about, and I'm going to prove all of you damn anti-Semites wrong. Mm-hmm. And so I read it, and I was painstaking. They're like, all the stuff they were going through, I'm like, no, Freud wasn't Jewish. Oh, shit, he was Jewish. Freud didn't say that about Gentiles. Ah, shit. And it's just over and over and over again. And eventually, I'm halfway through the book. I'm on the Frankfurt School studying Marcuse, and I say, I've looked up like 6,000 different references here, and I can't prove a damn thing wrong. This guy's telling the truth. And at that point, I just finished the book. And then I tried to debate a Jew I knew on it, and he just didn't want to talk about it. He had read the book too, and just anytime I brought up any of these points, he'd just say, well, you know, what do you want to go be an inbred and stuff? I don't know, he was trying to do the Jewish stereotypes where I'm like married to my cousin, living in a shack, banging my sister or something, you know? So, yeah, and then I tried to have these conversations in public, and no one wanted to have them. And at that point, I said, there's something fishy going on here. And then I read a hell of a lot more books. But yeah, it's true.
So you started out reading Culture of Critique.
Trying to disprove it.
To disprove it.
Yes.
Because you would see stuff on websites with people mentioning it, you were trying to show these guys.
I thought that Israel was a shining example, to quote myself, I thought Israel was a shining example of benevolent nationalism gone right. God, all the Fox News really got to my head, huh?
So you think Fox and the others spout that position?
Oh, hell yeah. Come on. I mean, have you watched Fox News?
Have not.
Oh.
Not too much.
Well, you're not missing anything.
So basically, let me go back. You said that there was a Palestinian in the Marines who was supporting Israel. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He was talking against Israel.
Yeah.
And you were trying to prove him or her wrong. You know,
oh no,
well.
I had an emotional reaction, and I just was like, no, you're being bad. Israel has the right to exist, but no real arguments.
Okay.
And that's mostly from the Baptists and the conservatives around the country. That's what you'll get. California is actually the best state to be doing what I'm doing in.
Why is that?
Because the Zio-Baptist churches aren't that prevalent here. A lot of the Christian churches here are very woke to the fact that the Palestinian Christians are being slaughtered by Jews. There are also a lot of Palestinians in the state.
Los Angeles especially. Yeah.
There were a lot of Assyrians around here too. They are not a fan of the Jews.
I don't even know. So, you talk about expelling the Jews by force if necessary from the U.S.
That's a last resort.
Sending them to Israel.
That's a last resort, and the only reason I mention that is because it's happened, depending on what level of municipality you look at, what level of state, it's happened 350-something times. And I went and looked, I read Martin Luther, I read some stuff from some different popes, and I read some stuff from the Russians, from Longshanks. They all said the same exact stuff. They're raping the kids, they're doing blood rituals, they're ripping us off, they're going up to drunk people and getting them to sign crazy loan contracts, they're completely being exploitive, they're degenerate, and they are just doing horrible stuff. So I can go into the details on that.
Well, there's no question Martin Luther did say that.
Oh, yeah.
So, did you read Martin Luther before coming to this conclusion, or was this
part of it?
afterwards and you supported?
I didn't watch some videos on Jews and then say, okay, I'm counter-Semitic now. I read source material initially trying to disprove the stuff. Then I thought it was too crazy to be true, so I read more books. David Irwin was a trip. Oh my God, he's the only real historian of the 20th century.
So, a lot of are some of your beliefs about the Holocaust based on David Irving's writings?
Well, what's the Holocaust?
Whatever you want to call it.
The real Holocaust were the hundreds of thousands of German citizens, civilians, old women, young women, children, and retirees that were burned alive in non-military targets. And now, if you didn't want to participate in those firebombing runs, you got discharged. So, yeah. That's the real Holocaust.
Well,
Holocaust means death by fire.
Well, right. David Irving did write. I think he used the word Holocaust, but in any case, you talk about on your website.
Jews were burned alive.
You talk about Auschwitz being a country club.
Yeah, it was.
Swimming pools, ice cream.
They even had a whorehouse.
So.
This is true. You can talk to survivors. There are Jewish survivors that even admit this stuff.
But was your writings on this, was this influenced by David Irving, or was this something you came to
David Irving mostly, yeah.
Okay.
However, there were other things. I saw interviews of Jews that had been at Auschwitz, and there were Jews that retreated with the camp guards when the Soviets were coming. They had ice cream, swimming pools, orchestras, plays. They had soccer fields, soccer teams. I mean, shit. I'd like to take a vacation at Auschwitz. The internment camps that the Germans had for the Jews in Germany prior to the very end of the war, where they ran out of supplies, were far more luxurious than the internment camps we had here in California for the Japanese during the war. Did you know that?
I did.
Far more luxurious. And I use the word luxury unironically. They had whorehouses. Come on, dude. Now, they also had hospitals where new Jews were born and taken care of. I mean, that doesn't sound like a fucking death camp to me.
You talk about the judiciary, J-E-W, and the fact that Jews are overrepresented. They 2% of the population, but higher percentage. So how would you go about getting it to percentage of, representative of the population?
That's on my website. Immediate dismissal. Just arbitrarily pick Jewish Supreme Court justices for termination or for retirement, and then appoint some goyim. Now, at the time when Donald Trump or President Trump appointed the 9th Supreme Court justice, 3 or 4 of the Supreme Court justices were ethnically Jewish. Now, you may say, well, where's the 4th one? And I'm going to tell you. So Sotomayor, you guys admit it?
No. Actually, Breyer, Ginsburg. I thought there were.
There's 3 or 4.
Yeah.
The fourth, if there is a 4th one,
then
it's Sotomayor.
Okay.
It's rumored that she has maternal Jewish ties. Anyhow, that would mean that at the time that the ninth Supreme Court justice was appointed by President Trump, half or 3/8, depending on whether or not Sotomayor is Jewish, were ethnically Jewish. Now look at what's happened under the Supreme Court. They've outlawed nativity displays in public grounds, right? Outlawed Christian displays. But you can have a fucking 10-foot doll menorah in front of the White House every fucking Christmas as a giant fuck you to the Christians. I mean, come on. The judiciary, they're unelected tyrants. I mean, there is one Jew that gave him a proper name once, Mark Levin. He called them the Men in Black. Like mobsters. Yeah, absolutely.
And the rest of the Supreme Court justices now are Catholic, right?
Yeah, but...
I don't believe there's a single Protestant on this.
Well, no, those evil wasp Protestants, they're just destroying the world. You know that, right? We can't have them on there.
So what I'm saying is, do you blame the Catholics on the Supreme Court as well for what's going on?
I don't think the Catholic Church really exists anymore below like cardinal or diocese level. So, in the 1920s, I'm sorry, the 1820s, the Jews took over the Bank of the Vatican. The predecessor to Pope John Paul II pointed this out. He was dead before 2 weeks were up. He tried to drive the Jews out of the Vatican Bank. He was dead before 2 weeks of being the Pope.
So the Catholic Church is now run by Jews?
They've been infiltrated. Now, Jews don't have to completely take over an organization to subvert it. I mean, look at what Pope John Paul's doing. He's kissing the feet of all of the non-Christians coming into Europe. Kissing their feet and saying, this is the best thing ever, we need more of these. Come on. These Muslims aren't going to convert to Christianity unless it's a way to get political asylum.
Do you think that the same ethnic test, I mean, the percentages, 2% of Jews should be in the judiciary because they make up 2% of the population?
So
should that be the same for other ethnicities as well?
No.
Only Jews?
Only Jews.
Why?
Jews are 67% of the student body for graduate students at Harvard, but they're less than 3% of top high school students. If you tell me there isn't some nasty shit going on there to make that happen.
But in other words, you think there should be only quotas for Jews, not for Muslims, not for Catholics, not for Irish, not for...
I don't care whether or not you go to synagogue, I care whether or not you're ethnically Jewish. For ethnic Jews, yes, because they will take it over and subvert it.
So you're okay if it turns out that 98% of the judiciary becomes black or Latino or something like that, only the Jews?
I mean, you got to remember, I'm not just saying this stuff because I just hate Jews or something. No, it's because of what the Jews have done with that power. 55% of white Americans admitted in a recent survey that they feel systematically discriminated against. I mean, come on. It's not going too good for the Goyim right now.
But that was whites, right?
Yeah.
55%.
Yeah.
Not Christians. So
I'm going based off from race this whole time. The only parts of Judaism that I deal with are the parts that deal with the racial aspects. Now, and the only reason I say this is because an Orthodox synagogue will let an atheist communist Jew speak at the synagogue and do service, even if they are an atheist communist. Judaism is about race. They're the most, according to all studies that I've seen, Jews are the most ethnocentric people on earth. That's where the nepotism comes in. Now that seemed pretty reasonable considering that Jews were less than 2% of the population back then. They got rid of this quota in the 20s, but the Jews still complain about that nasty quota that the Goyim had. I mean, Elena Kagan only appointed Jews at Harvard during her tenure. Only took on Jews. Jews are 2% of the population. The best and brightest that she could find, there were only Jews. Come on, dude.
So you use words like Goyim, and at one point on your website you talk about Shabbos Goyim, which I would guess most Jews don't even know what that means. But why do you use Jewish terms? Why do you mention that you speak in Hebrew and
because
stuff
it shows that I know how Jews think.
You grew up in Maine, right? Mm-hmm. Until what age?
17, then a little over a year in Germany, and then
Is a exchange student or what in Germany?
I dropped out of high school, got my GED, and for $1,000 I was able to do a gymnasium internat over there.
Okay. Did you ever
I did
go?
physics and biochemistry in German with no prior knowledge. I'd never taken physics before in my life. I passed it in German. I'd never taken
German?
physics. I had never taken physics before. And I'm not.
But and you just learned German when you were over there?
Mhm.
Okay.
I started taking vacations in Germany when I was 14. No, 13. And the couple that I was visiting said the only way you can come over here is if you pay your own way. So I know your parents paid for this trip. They gave you your pocket money and you gave you a ticket. You have to pay them back, and you have to save up the money yourself to come back. And so I said, holy shit, these people are awesome. Tough love. And so I did that. Once or twice a year I'd go back to Germany, because back then the Deutschmark was very weak, the dollar was very strong, and I was happy to work for $5.50 an hour washing dishes so I could go drink wine on the Rhine.
Why did you pick Germany? Was that something you had always been attracted
Castles.
to? Okay.
Yeah, I was a big fan of the Rhine castles.
I mean, so it wasn't because of the Nazi era or National Socialist Party, or you know, were fascinated by what happened during the war. It was more.
Well, I admired German culture from afar. I'm a big fan. I used to be a big fan of Immanuel Kant. I really, really, really liked the way the German buildings and cathedrals looked. I liked how orderly they were. The Germans I had met were just the most squared away people. It was like they'd all been in the Marine Corps. They're just very squared away. They kept their houses super clean. Very, very low in-group preference. I think the Germans and the Swedes have the lowest in-group preference in the world, based off from, what did they call? What did the Jew use in that book, the authoritarian personality? What was it, like the R factor? Or what was the factor by which ethnocentricity was judged? No. Anyhow, yeah, they're welcoming. They're the most welcoming, open country in the world, and they have been for the longest time. If you read old German literature and stuff, I mean, their policy was one drop of German blood made you German. We're talking about the least endogenous, least in-group preference people in the world. Very loving, very open, logical, structured people. And so they were cold with logic, they were brutally honest, and a few times in my life I've been accused of having Asperger's because I don't do stuff, I don't have tact, I don't take emotional cues into consideration, I give the whole truth as I see it. And so I'm like, wow, these people are just like me. So I went over there, and yeah, started studying the language a little bit, but mostly I wanted to drink wine and look at the castles, go to the museums. I really like the Roman ruins and all that.
But you don't have that.
No, they wouldn't have let me in the Marine Corps if I did. Although they made fun of me and said I was an autist there, but that's a term you'll see thrown around.
An autist? As in autistic?
Yeah, it's a joke for people. In modern society now, the last 10 years, if someone doesn't respond to emotional cues and they give you a long theoretical argument without noticing that everyone else is falling asleep, they call that autism.
Okay.
You're not, it's like slang for situational awareness, lack of situational awareness.
So, would you have preferred to live in the Germany of pre-war times, say 1935, 1936, than in the America of 2018? Would you have been more comfortable there?
I would have rather lived in 1955 America than 1930s Germany. But I was given the choice of raising a family between 1933 and 1939 in Germany and one here, I would say you had a lot better chance of being able to have a single income with a good wife, happy children that aren't watching porn and doing drugs. Yeah, absolutely.
So you'd rather, if you were raising a family, you'd say you'd rather do that in 33 to 39 Germany than current America.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I thought you were saying that America in that time.
The Jews have completely destroyed our culture with their poisoning on the Talmud vision, with their celebration of drugs, with that. I mean, do you understand what the Frankfurt School is? It was a systematic attack on white culture. They completely destroyed our family union for the most part.
Let me go back to, you remained till you were 17, then you went to Germany. Then after that you joined the Corps, or?
No.
Okay.
Then after that, I went back and finished high school anyway. I said I've got my GED, but I'm going to be what's it called? What's it called when you get 2 degrees in college? Dual major. I'm going to be a dual major. I'm going to have a GED and a diploma. And so I got my diploma. I went to American University, which I think is majority Jewish.
In Washington?
Yeah.
Okay.
They called it at the time they called it gay Jew. But I was very philo-Semitic. No, I made good friends with a Jew. I forget his name. No, but he used to like philosophy and stuff. But he liked like Dostoevsky and stuff. He liked the darker stuff, which I found is actually a pattern with Jews. You know about that, right? Jews tend to like darker philosophy and humor. Yeah.
So I'm missing a couple years there. So you're 17, you go to Germany, you come back, you get your high school degree.
And then I go to American University.
Don't cut that on your notes.
Oh, yeah.
So then, did you go directly from Maine to American University?
Yep.
Okay, and majored in?
I was doing international business. I wanted to be an international currency trader. Later I found out it was Jewish central bankers that would tip off their buddies with hedge funds what to short and what to go long on. But I thought it was just, if anyone got good enough at pattern recognition, you'd get to sit at that table. I didn't realize you had to be part of the clique like George Soros and stuff to get in on that. But yeah, I saw this one film, $1 Billion Day, where a guy's driving around in a boxy Beamer, and he was trading money, and let's short the yen and let's go long on the pound or whatever. I loved that. I said, I want just 1980s looking computer terminal screens in front of me, and I want to be barking at people in other countries to buy or sell stuff. I don't know. It looked fun, and so I that was what I wanted to do. And
did you finish up there? Did you get a degree from GW?
No, not George Washington.
Washington. I'm sorry, Washington.
You go to American. The Jews that don't get into George Washington go to American.
Okay, American University. Okay, so did you finish there, or did you get a degree?
No, I went to University of North Florida. They had an excellent accounting program, so I changed my degree to something where it would be just a guaranteed job at the time. Right now, Sarbanes-Oxley was freshly out, and I went to one of the top accounting programs in the country, and at the Kogod School of Business, I think it was, at University of North Florida. And yeah, I got my accounting degree from there. And but then at that point, I wanted to be a Marine Corps officer, but I couldn't do enough pull-ups. So I just enlisted instead. They said, "Oh, yeah, you can go Mustang anytime."
So, how old were you when you joined the Marines?
I started the delayed entry program in April of 2011. Yeah.
And how old were you at that?
2011,
And when were you born?
84.
Okay. So you're 34 now, or 33?
About to be 33. No, I'm about to be 34.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to be able to know down to the month how old I was when I was a kid. Now I have to think about it.
When are you going to be 34?
May.
Okay.
Coming right up. Oh, well, yeah, now.
What day?
I mean, this is personally identifiable information. You can look it up. It was the day the hood sunk, the Bismarck sunk the hood. There's a little trivia for you.
I will have to look it up. Going back a little bit, did your parents have strong feelings one way or another as far as Jews, or was that something you discussed at home?
My dad was the second or third highest up at a bank with multiple locations. He didn't talk about Jews. We did buy all of our furniture from a Jew, though. We liked his furniture store.
Okay.
But
so
yeah, no,
when you were growing up, did you have much contact with Jews?
I didn't know they were Jews until I read Culture of Critique, and then I called up my buddy and said, "Hey, was this and this, this and this, this and this Jews?" And he said, "Yep." And I said, "No shit."
Oh, so no, you knew of Jews before then, but you didn't know that growing up you hung out with Jews until you read Culture of Critique.
And then I recognized some group behaviors that they have and was able to identify some. But yeah, you can. It's funny. A lot of the white guys that wake up, and this is also true of Asians and Mexicans that wake up to this stuff. They realize who had been Jewish that they had known in the past based off from what they know about group Jewish behavior after they wake up.
So in other words, as far as interactions, you say you went to synagogue in Florida, and so you did have interactions with Jews. It's not like you never met one and all of a sudden.
Yeah, I was like super pro-Israeli.
Or were you super pro-Jewish? Or do you see them as the same thing?
I was super both.
Okay.
Now, I was also pro-white at the time, but anytime I started talking about stuff, they started talking about how bad it used to be when, like, the country was explicitly pro-white and stuff. So I'd just be like, okay, that's a soft subject with them, so I just didn't go into it. At this point, I hadn't read any of the books and stuff that I have now.
And you read all this after the court?
I read all this right around the time of the Trump election through March. I did nothing but read. And then March through...
This is just last year? Or the Trump election in
I've been awake for about a year and a half, yeah. Tell
me a little, you're an IT guy?
Yeah.
Did you work for big companies here in the Valley? Or have you mostly been doing stuff on your own?
When I was getting out of the Marine Corps, I had very little time to set up my life afterward because I was one of the few producers in the unit. We had a lot of people that were in transition, of getting in trouble or transferring to another unit, and so we were very short on manpower, well below what it was stated on our manpower document. So I and a few others that were actually ready, willing, and able to go out to the field all the time got used right up until we got out. You know, normally your last 6 months you get time to like research where you're going to be going to school, go visit schools and stuff, paid time to go look at houses and stuff, and well, I got some of that paid time off at the end, PTAD, but at the very end when I had to be loading up the U-Haul a few days later anyway. So yeah, I came up here because my wife had liked the climate around here. And I said, you know what, let's move up there. I've got a network engineer type background with the 0651 data network specialist thing. And so I said, if there's one place you can get a job in IT and networking, it's probably the Bay Area. So at first I drove like 60 or 70 hours a week for ride shares, Lyft and Uber. And but I was a go-getter, so I was handing out resumes that I had in the glove compartment all the time, and I hovered around Twitter headquarters, around LinkedIn, around Lending Club. I went down to Palo Alto, hung out around Facebook, and shit, before they got rid of my LinkedIn, I was talking about Jews on LinkedIn, so they deleted my account. But I had like the head of Africa for Google on my LinkedIn. I was connected with all sorts of people all over Silicon Valley through LinkedIn.
Okay, so you came up here hoping to get a job in IT or network.
After about 2 months of driving Lyft and Uber, I had a good one, yeah.
Okay, so you immediately started driving to make ends meet. That when you say you had a good one,
I had a boat loan I wanted to pay off, and my goal was to pay that. I wanted to stay debt free. I'm very debt averse, and so I worked a lot. I could have gotten by in 35 hours or 30 hours a week of driving, easy. But
did you ever get it, like full-time IT?
Yeah. I was a network engineer at a Y Combinator startup.
At a what?
Y Combinator startup.
Y Combinator.
Yep.
Okay. In Berkeley or in the Valley?
I'm not going to name the business because I don't want them to be affiliated with my campaign as much as I feel secure in telling the truth. I still all of the emotional programming. I don't want that business to get in trouble. But yeah, it was in the peninsula.
And then you quit that to start the campaign?
Yeah, I called in and I said I need 2 weeks off. When I started reading Culture of Critique, I said I need 2 weeks off. It was around election time. And they said you can't have it, and I said I quit. Now, have you ever read that book, Culture of Critique?
I looked it up, but I have not read it.
You've got to do it. You won't understand anything I'm saying until you read that book. You realize Paul Nehlen was also philo-Semitic before he read that book too, right?
Well, quite often people that write books like that who, are either converts from one way of thinking to another, whatever. But
I was not like.
I don't know much about Paul Nehlen other than what I read.
I was all about Constitution, and I was against Islam, and I was for Israel, and I saw I was not teetering on changing my belief systems. I was steadfast and entrenched. I used to get a lot of guff because I would constantly be standing up for Israel and stuff, and yeah.
So it's just the last couple of years that you've changed over to being
a year and a half. Well, you have to remember, my MO was to prove the book right because everyone kept on talking about it. I proved the book right.
Okay,
The best way when you have like a scientific theory or something, the best way to prove it is to try and disprove it.
So just going back to your family for a second. So in other words, there was any anti-Jewish or anti-Israel feelings would not have come from your parents?
Not at all.
Okay.
Actually, I'm pretty sure my dad probably worked with a lot of Jews.
Have you discussed do they know about your platform and so on now?
Yeah, I don't. They're just like they don't. I've tried to convert them to being awakened. They don't want to know. So it's just like, don't talk to us about it. And I pretty much don't have much contact with them now. But they asked me not to talk about them. But no, my beliefs and my positions now do not come from my family in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
I wish they shared these beliefs, but I think they'll wake up. There are more and more people waking up every day now. And so, yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll eventually get on board. But I think, then again, most people will. If you look at the rate of which people have been waking up since the internet came about, the slope is increasing.
So is that your main goal here? Or is your goal to become a U.S. Senator, or is it to awaken people?
To become U.S. Senator. I mean, it's a huge bonus if I wake a bunch of people up. But at the same time, I'm also normalizing this discussion, and this is a discussion that needs to be had. The longer this stuff gets kept under wraps, the worse it's going to be for the Jews. And that's not a threat. Historically, it's true. The longer the Jews try and hold on to power in a country where the public's waking up to them being in power, realizing that they're all the people around the prince and stuff, the harsher the reprisal is. I mean, Commander George Lincoln Rockwell said it best. He said, if I don't succeed, there are going to be Jews hanging from every lamp pole in the country. I'm not saying it's my primary goal to prevent that, but I don't want to see that.
So George Lincoln Rockwell, is that also in the last 18 months you just discovered his writings? Or is that...
Yeah, you realize that this guy was very pro-Israeli, libertarian type stuff too. Same thing happened to them. He woke up to the truth.
So
you got to read.
Go ahead.
So he went to source material too. You know what woke him up, right? He was interested in the Reds and stuff that was going on with Senator McCarthy and stuff. And so he back then you had to request transcripts and stuff. So he wrote his congressman. He said, "Give me those transcripts. I'll pay for the photostats." And he looked it up. He said, "Why do all these people have Jewish names?" And at that point, he started reading. I mean, this stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum, man. You realize, you call it anti-Semitism and stuff. This stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. Like, you realize it's Jewish behavior that gets people angry at Jews. It's not because there's like some chosen invisible crown on all the Jewish people that just makes all the people resent them. I've heard that. I mean, I used to actually spout that stuff off. I used to say that it was the Jewish special abilities and the Jewish chosenness by God that made everyone hate them. It was jealousy and stuff. Come on, I used to use those lines myself. What you call anti-Semitism is caused by Jewish behavior. And it doesn't have to be every Jew that's acting this way. But I can tell you one thing. There are some stats that are making it around to people around the country. So a majority of Jews support affirmative action, right? In a survey, right? Now, if you change the wording on that survey to just being whether or not you support affirmative action and change it to where it says hurts affirmative action, support affirmative action that hurts whites, the percentage of Jews that support it goes up. You get that, right?
What about if it says that it hurts Jews? Or is that question not answered?
I'm not sure, right? Well, most people, so you have two extremes. You have people that are either awakened to the Jewish question or the people that watch the TV all the time. The people that watch the TV all the time are going to say, oh, that's terrible, the Holocaust. It's literally, have you studied Pavlovian conditioning?
I know what it is, I haven't studied it.
I would look heavily into it. Dr. Pavlov, it was Brandeis was the one who got ladies to smoke cigarettes. He was the first one to implement Pavlov's findings in marketing. Brandeis was the nephew of Freud, who got all of the women and stuff to
Brandeis, the Supreme Court Justice, or Brandeis, who founded the university?
Hold on. Oh shit. I'm thinking of I'm thinking of the 20th Supreme Court Justice. What was his name? I'm going to pause it and look this up real quick. Join this to the last clip.
Okay, just a few more questions, Pat.
Okay, so I accidentally sent Brandeis. I meant to say Bernays, Edward Bernays.
Okay.
He's the father of modern marketing. He's the one that got women to start smoking.
Your campaign, is this all self-financed, or are you getting contributions coming in, or how are you supporting yourself now?
I sold one of my cars. I'm selling my beloved boat. This is self-financed. I've received, I got a $199 check the other day. And I've gotten about $50 worth of Bitcoin until I realized it's too hard to keep track of where that's coming from. So I shut that off because I didn't want someone to send me like 10 grand and then I'd get in trouble for it. So I only accept money as checks through the mail. My primary fear right now is that someone will try and find a flub up in my paperwork or something, so I only accept checks and I'm asking nobody to donate to 200 or more. So I'm asking people to keep donations under 200. I've also promised not to accept money from any corporations or lobby groups or anything like that. But yeah, right now I'm not getting 18% because I'm spending a lot. De Leon and all them, the other 32 candidates, they're spending all the money. I'm not spending much money. I mean, I'm doing what the original intent was for people running for office, is someone's making a sacrifice of their time and their money to serve their country. I joined the Marine Corps to serve my country, and that's the same reason I'm running for Senate. I'm not in this for the money. My combined income was like 100 grand a year between my different jobs. My moonlighting as a cab driver, plus my tax-free thing that I get, plus my salary. My equivalent pre-tax income, if I just had one chunk, would be like 120 or 125 a year. I walked away from that.
How are you supporting yourself?
You think I spent all the money I earned?
So you're spending your savings?
Pretty much.
Okay. The Republican Party wouldn't let you into the convention last weekend.
Yeah.
Are you a Republican?
Yeah, I was a Republican executive committee member in Duval County, Florida. That includes Jacksonville.
Okay.
Now, one of my favorite presidents ever was a Democrat. So if you ask me, so George Washington's my favorite president, but he says political parties are poison, don't do the party system. We did it anyway. His parting address is really critical. It also, anyhow, that's a whole hour I could do on that. So Grover Cleveland, he hated corruption. He cleaned out the Jews from Tammany Hall. He was a Democrat. I didn't know they were Jews when I first was reading about him, and then I looked up the names of the people he was cracking down on, and Jews. Tammany Hall, one of the most corrupt city halls in history, New York. He cleaned it up. He won the presidency with those credentials.
He was from New York?
Yeah.
Okay. So you talked about on the website or maybe in an interview, the NNT party.
NNT? That's a joke.
Okay, that's okay. The no name party.
No, that was a joke.
Okay.
I'm pretty much saying if they don't talk about Jewish supremacism and Jewish influence in our government, you shouldn't vote for them.
Okay.
Just kind of like, what a slack variable is?
No.
In computer programming, if you have unallocated resources, it goes to the slack.
Okay.
So there's nothing worth putting your resources into, put it into the slack. Okay. And then politicians say, I'm missing 30% of the vote that would have voted for me if I had talked about Jewish power. Okay. Yeah, just like something to encourage politicians to have the balls to talk about this stuff.
So you say you were a Republican executive committee in Florida.
Tea Party, all that, yeah.
Okay. Are you a Trump supporter?
I mean, I was like the most pro-Trump guy in the world before his campaign. And then he started doing all this stuff to put America last, started bombing Syria, a democratically elected leader who protects his religious minorities, beloved by the Christians there. He started supporting Israel in its terrorist war against the Syrians. He went back on everything he said, because he said Iraq was a terrible mistake, and I'm making sure we stay the hell away from Syria. Well, I think that he's seeing the same thing as Kennedy saw when he tried to, challenge Jewish power. So Trump tried to challenge Jewish power not so much domestically with domestic policy, but more with foreign policy. And I don't know whether or not they've got a gun to Barron's head or what, but he's certainly not doing what he said he was going to do.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, you're not supporting.
I consider Jews as a group to be have a predisposition towards terrorism, and I think that Trump is a hostage president right now. I mean, he's pretty much got the mafia in the White House. Chabad Lubavitch is a terrorist organization, and Kushner is a member of Chabad. Are you Chabad? Or? No?
And finally, I thought I saw a reference one place to you saying you were in Charlottesville. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a personal security detail for Pax Dickinson.
So this was early on in when you were,
I'd
making your transition.
only been awake for 8 or 9 months at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So was that a big moment in this transition? That
we had all of the permits to do it. Even though the city and the Zionist mayor and so there's a Zionist Jew who's the mayor. The ADL and the SPLC came in and indoctrinated all the police with sensitivity training in the months leading up to it. The governor authorized the state of emergency. We had all the permits, and we still got disbanded. There was no violence coming from our side, and even if there was, it was a loose band of a bunch of people that came together to show their support for the statue of General Lee, who was opposed to slavery, contrary to what you're going to see in all these Jewish movies and stuff. Very gore. What I was going to say is that we obeyed the law. Mm-hmm. The Jewish-supported Antifa did not, and when the state of emergency declared, all groups of 3 or more people became illegal within the designated area. You understand? We disbanded. We obeyed. We left, even though we thought it was complete horseshit. Antifa did not, and the police did not try to break them up. You see what was happening? We had guys using flamethrowers on us. We had people flagging us with firearms. Yeah, they were pointing their rifles right at us. We weren't pointing back. There was one guy that fired a warning shot to someone that was using a flamethrower, but I wasn't there for that, so I can't speak to it. The optics that guy was using were not optimal, but I'm not going to counter signal. DeAndre Harris was, we have the video of DeAndre Harris chasing down and beating the people that were retreating, obeying police orders to go to their parking garage so they could disband their vehicles. DeAndre Harris was beating people over the head with a flashlight. And when people defended themselves, they went to prison. And this guy got hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations because the Jewish-controlled media portrayed him as the victim when he was the aggressor. And so we see political prisoners. So all of the people that are accusing Christopher Cantwell are committing perjury, and this is verifiable via film. But he's the one that's in the holding tank, in the Jewish lawfare system right now. And all of his accusers that have perjured themselves are hiding in Europe. So Gorzinski, after she found out she had perjured himself against him, or he, or whatever, I don't know if it has transitioned back and forth, but she ran away to Germany after it was found out there was video evidence that she was lying, or he, or what, I don't know, was that Berna girl or guy?
I'm not even sure.
Oh, the accuser against Chris Cantwell.
Okay, I've heard the name Chris Cantwell, but I don't know who the accuser is. So.
Oh, yeah.
You're way more steeped in the information about this than I am.
Now, there are double standards, though. So guys defend themselves while obeying police orders to disperse, while the other side that's attacking us didn't disperse. And the state of emergency applies to all civilian groups, not just one side, the licensed demonstration. So, but you had a group of non-white people kidnap a mentally handicapped white boy in Chicago. They scalped him on Facebook Live. They got community service. They didn't even go to jail. I mean, come on. So, when you see white people starting to wonder, because I wouldn't have even taken the time to read that cultural critique book unless I hadn't just had the question looming over my head: what the hell's going on with this country and all of the white countries? Why are whites being invaded? Why are whites being replaced? Why is the media saying that we're all evil? Why are we all displayed as the biggest, dumbest people ever?
So you already have these questions.
Oh, I was pro-white my whole life.
No, but when you're saying, so in other words, cultural critique did it change your thinking? Or
it was a missing puzzle piece. Yeah.
I'm just going to save this so I don't kill it out by mistake.
You're a good listener, Rob.
It's my job. But, it's not my place to agree or disagree with you. It's to just tell people what you stand for.
Well, let the Jewish community what's going on here, because if there's one group that's going to be able to prevent any type of nastiness from happening in the Jewish community, it's going to be Jews themselves. Ultimately, people govern their own. And I strongly encourage all Jews that find out about the things that are going on, such as I'm describing. It's their obligation to report that to the community and say, this guy's pissed, and this is the reasons he's stating. And instead of just trying to dismiss them as pathologies, say, this guy was extremely pro-Israeli. This guy saw Israel as a shining example of nationalism gone right, to quote him. This is an example of our best friend turned into the person who's more mad at us than just about anyone else. Seriously. Wake up the Jewish community to what's going on. Let them know that it's not going unnoticed that the Jewish media and Jewish Hollywood is taking away all of our statues and our heroes of the past and replacing all of the white men in the past in the movies and portraying them with non-whites. I mean, when you take away a culture's heroes, you're taking away its future. Young men emulate heroes. And nowadays we look, we watch the movie produced by the Jews about going to the moon. They say it was some ethnic minority lady doing last-minute double-checking of calculations for the Apollo mission that saved the Apollo 13 crew. I mean, I understand throwing people a bone, but come on. They made it look like her running around with a scratch pad was the reason those guys got back. I understand the need, the want to help other groups and stuff, but there's malicious intent behind that. I mean, who built those rockets? Who got us there? It was Germans. Wernher von Braun, those evil people that just decided to attack everyone for no reason, according to the narratives we get in the media and stuff. They built those rockets. They got us to the moon. It wasn't some lady running around with a mop and a broom and a scratch pad. But it's the same thing with the General Lee statue. Do you understand? General Lee was against slavery. But we're all portrayed as pro-slavery white supremacist inbreds for going there and defending a statue. When you take a history or roots from its culture, when you take the roots or the culture from a people, the people dies. And no group should understand it better than the Jewish people. In diaspora, Jews put in enormous amounts of energy into maintaining their group identity, their history, their folklore. And if you think that Jews as a group can then go and take that from the white countries of the world and not expect reprisals, you guys are out of your fucking minds. Come on, there's the internet now. I mean, television that gave you the Jewish century, that's over now. There's the internet now. The games aren't going to work anymore. Read Culture of Critique. You try to prove it wrong. Shit, you might vote for me. But, I mean, that's a really big thing here that I can't believe I almost forgot. If you take away a group's identity, if you take their heroes from them, their folklore, I mean, if you took away Rachel in Babylon, if you took away Moses coming out of Egypt, if you took that, and if you and if then, let's say that Australian Aborigines took over the media and the schools and the government and the Supreme Court, and they said that, you know, all of these Jewish people in the past were all just very bad people, you know. Come on. How would you guys react? So, the biggest takeaway, I think, for a Jew who reads Culture of Critique would be the focus on Jewish particularism, where Jews say these general philosophical principles for everyone else, and then special rules for us. But we're not going to set anything set in stone. Everything's going to be like a rabbi interpreting the Talmud, where, well, today I'll try to interpret it this way to fit the immediate needs, and today I'll interpret it this way. No. These objective philosophical things that all the Goyim are supposed to obey. I mean, the Jewish particularism. Just read Culture of Critique. I can't summarize that book. He made it as concise as possible.
It's 4 books, right? Or 3 or 4
3.
books?
So there's separation, it's discontents, and a people who shall dwell alone. Who are that?
And you read all 3?
Yeah. Although I skipped some parts of the second book, which the key thing is if you read the first book, it talks about other groups. So Dr. Kevin MacDonald studied other groups with the same intensity that he studied Jews. And he said, wow, let's study the Jews because they're a lot like the Roma. He was not an anti-Semite going into that, if you want to call him an anti-Semite now. Like, I'm using the terminology that Jews would use. It was knowledge that gave him his current set of behavior. It was the reason and logic. Maybe you should start with his other books that objectively talk about the group evolutionary strategies of non-Jewish groups. And then maybe read Culture of Critique, so you can see he didn't go out there to write a hit piece. This guy was a legitimate anthropological psychologist, evolutionary psychologist. Sorry.
Okay. Are you going to do what are considered, normal campaign? I know nothing is normal anymore. That campaigning has changed. But are you going to go to candidates' forums? Are you going to go give speeches?
I get barred. I tried to go. They barred me from it.
Okay.
I mean, I had more than twice the support of anyone in that place. I mean, I think all those Republican candidates put together weren't polling as high as I was. I mean, come on. They tried to keep Trump out of the primaries and stuff, even when he was beating Cruz. Like, Cruz's campaign was dead, and I went to the GOP thing in San Mateo in May of 2015. And he, every table was Cruz this, Cruz that, Cruz everywhere, all the money for Cruz. And but the GOP machine was still Cruz, 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 even though every primary was going Trump, 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 Trump. So I could have 90% of the vote, and they still wouldn't let me in the damn convention. You get it, right? It's because it's controlled by Jews.
The Republican Party?
Absolutely. So is the Democrat Party. But you know what? I'm trying to make it so at least one party isn't. But Shlomo's a control freak. He doesn't want that happening. In his infinite wisdom, Solomon said, I need to control everything.
All right, I think we're going to leave it there, Pat, because I think it could go on all night.
Share the roots thing I was talking about, taking roots from a tree and it falls over things. Jews will understand that.
It's all on here.
Rob, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to go get some cigarettes.
You're a smoker?
I picked it up in the core, man.
Oh, man.
It was the only way.